6 months ago today, I moved to Guimarães, Portugal, with this guy. And I had never been to Guimarães, but it's left an impression on me that I will take with me for the rest of my life. My name is Howie. This is Positively Portugal. Let's get into it. In these first 6 months, I've learned a lot of things. But today we're going to talk about the top 6 things that I've learned. Say 6 things in 6 months. I can play this YouTube game as well. So, number 1. Portugal is not cheap. It is cheaper for the most part than the United States, unless you're comparing Vila Moura with Dubuque, Iowa, for example. But if you think you're going to come to Portugal from the United States and live like a king, as they say, well, as Judas Priest says, you got another thing coming. You see, there are only 3 things in Portugal now that are considerably cheaper than in the United States. There's rent, and there's beer and wine, whether it be in a bar, restaurant, or grocery store. Everything else is actually pretty comparable to the United States, and most things are a little cheaper. Of course, you have things like electronics, cars, gasoline, anything luxury related. It's actually a lot more expensive in Portugal than in the United States. But I guess we'll talk about groceries. That's probably the best example. When you're shopping and doing the math in your head from kilograms to pounds and then from euros to dollars, what you find is that most things, for the most part, fruits and vegetables are, say, 10, 20 cents per pound cheaper, maybe 30 cents. But it's nothing that will make you say to yourself, wow, this is the reason I have to move to Portugal. In fact, if moving to Portugal as a way of lowering your cost of living is your primary reason, I can tell you it ain't going to work out. And again, it's cheaper than living in the United States, but that's not the reason why you move here. Number 2, professional opportunities, or a lack thereof. I came to Portugal on the D8 digital nomad visa, which means I'm still working. And being a digital nomad a lot of times does not mean working for yourself. I would like for this channel to one day fund my life, but until that day happens, I'm still working for others. I'm working for a company, and the company that I'm working for sucks. I couldn't care less if they find out that I have this channel. They suck. And I'll gladly tell them that to their faces. You see, on-time payment seems to be an issue for them. And that only happens because I'm here in Portugal. That would not happen in the United States for absolute fear of what might happen to them. So, although I'm fine financially because it's an American salary, I could potentially run into issues if and when the time comes that I have to show consistent income to the government or or whoever asks for it. Yeah, I am concerned that this could cost me a residence permit. I'll have the answer for that in about 2 months, and we'll go from there. But there's a push to return to the office. Aside from that, American companies, they really aren't keen on hiring anyone who's overseas, even if they're an American citizen. I guess there are tax implications involved. I don't know the math in it, but I know that there are financial implications. The other thing is we're now living in the post-COVID world where, again, there's that push to return to the office. The generation that is, I don't know if it's mostly in charge, but I guess more in charge than not. A lot of them are still boomers. Some of them are the older half of Generation X, the generation that I'm in. And especially if you're a boomer, you didn't grow up with remote work. It's a foreign concept to you. And you think that people who work remotely aren't really working. They're sitting around and watching television all day. I'm not going to deny that that happens with some people, but for me, and I think for the majority of remote workers, we work even harder because we feel like we have to constantly prove ourselves that we're not sitting there and screwing around all day. And with working remotely during COVID, oh, it upset the boomers and it upset the older Generation Xers. Oh, did that piss them off? And now they're vengeful. They're very spiteful. They want to make sure that everyone is back in that office. Now, what's going to happen is the older Generation Xers will retire. The boomers will, well, look, they'll die off. And the way of the future is remote. I can tell you that most things can be done remotely. You really don't need offices or structures. Obviously, you need fire stations, police stations, hospitals, doctors' offices. But for regular white-collar office work, most of it is totally unnecessary. It can be done from anywhere. However, I'm stuck waiting for those Generation Xers to retire and the boomers to just die off. And I don't know how long I can wait because I might not be able to last in Portugal until that happens. Number 3, pet care. This is the thing that I dislike the most about Portugal. There are way too many homeless cats and dogs running around the streets of Guimarães. And some even have collars on them, which means at one time they had a home, they either ran away or they were thrown out by their owners. There is a big indifference to homeless animals, or really animals in general here. There are people who take care of them, who feed them, and provide certain things like a place to sleep inside of, some sort of an outdoor structure. But for the most part, there's an indifference. Even when I'm on the street and I see somebody walking their dog, I'll always smile at the dog because that's just who I am. I love animals. I will always choose cats and dogs over people. But the owner of the dog that's being walked will give me a look like I'm completely insane. Why are you smiling at a dog? It's just a dog. Well, no, to me it's not just a dog. And my cat is my son. And I will proudly say that to anyone that my cat is my son. Let's talk about cat food. Charlie gets a medicated diet for urinary stress. One can of it here is €2.29. In the United States, it's $2.59. So when you do the math on that with fluctuating rates, there's no difference. It costs the same. I'm not saving any money on Charlie's food, which I find very surprising because when you consider the fact that the average American salary is 2.7 times the average Portuguese salary, you realize that pet care is nothing more than a business here, and that the concerns and the needs of the animals do not come into play whatsoever. Cat litter, the worst cat litter in the United States, even the Walmart brand that you can get in a bag, not even in a box, even that's better than the average Portuguese cat litter. Portuguese cat litter is so bad that when Charlie uses the litter box, I usually have to wait half the day before it clumps enough for me to scoop. And when I went to New York, I was looking for a place for Charlie to stay. Most veterinary practices don't have their own boarding. And if they do, it's only for dogs. I even had one veterinary practice, one worker there say to me that they don't take cats because cats have bad personalities. I just gave her a look and I wanted to say to her, well, to hell with you, dipshit. You're a veterinary professional. Act like it. There's nothing wrong with cats' personalities. Just because they don't act like dogs and take commands like dogs doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. You got to think of cats as little people. So I found one place, which I think is the biggest animal hospital in Guimarães, and they had their own pet hotel. They were charging 22 euros and 50 cents per night. In St. Petersburg, Florida, I was paying $20 per night. So that's actually more expensive than in the United States. I'm just taken aback by the indifference to animals here. I finally found a private pet hotel or pet sanctuary that put Charlie up for 13 euros a night, and I am so grateful for them. So if you're ever looking for a place for your animal to stay and you're in the Guimarães area or even in northern Portugal, just let me know and I'll gladly point you in that business's direction. Number 4, stereotypes. I found that a lot of stereotypes are true. And the word kind of has a negative connotation. So I don't like using the word stereotype. I prefer the word perception. There is a perception of Americans amongst Europeans that we use way too much small talk. We talk about the most mundane, pointless, stupid things. And I never really thought anything of that perception because up until a half year ago, I had never lived in any other country. But now I can tell you it's 100% true. I could be at a bar sitting outside and I'll see Americans walk by and they're loud. They have loud voices and they're talking about pointless things that make no difference in anyone else's lives, including their own. And every time I hear that kind of pointless conversation, I just kind of, put my head in my hands in disgust or embarrassment. And I just think to myself, God, I hope they're Canadian because I just don't want to be associated with that. And they're usually not. They usually are American. But, Canadians, look, you're just as guilty. There's just less of you. And then when I was on that trip to New York, I had to fly from Porto to Lisbon. And I get to Lisbon, I have to take a shuttle bus to get to the terminal, and there's 4 Americans, 2 married couples, they're friends, and I'm just listening to this conversation. Keep in mind, I've been up since 4 a.m. I had to take an early bus to get to the airport in Porto. And they're talking about an experience that they had in a restaurant somewhere in Lisbon. And I'm still getting over sickness, so I'm going to try to reenact this. And oh my God, we had such a divine experience at this restaurant in Belém. I typically don't like burgers, and they said that the onions were caramelized, but I couldn't detect any caramelization. To me, they were just fried, but it was really tasty. And even though I didn't consider them to be caramelized, you know what they say, when in Rome. And I'm just sitting there because I'm already nauseous. When I'm up early and it's much earlier than I'm supposed to be, I get sick. Not like a cold, but I just want to throw up. And just listening to their conversation, holy hell. And don't kid yourselves. There's this whole subculture of upper middle class suburban Americans who speak like that. Not just about the mundane nonsense, but they speak in this fake British accent. And I think that kind of really started like 30 years back with Madonna when she started speaking that way. But it just, oof, as an American who still has his New York accent, when I hear that, it just makes my blood boil. I can't stand it. But hey, Europeans, we have some perceptions of you. Americans think that Europeans will just accept anything, that they'll just sit there and take it. And yeah, I agree with that now. I look at what the cost of electronics are. I recently bought a MacBook Air, and I did it on Best Buy's website, had it sent to my family's home in New York. The cost in euros was 750 compared to 1120. I saved 370 euros. Let's say that's something like $420 by getting an American MacBook Air as opposed to European. Now, when you're talking about iPhones are 200 euros more expensive in any model than in the United States. 200 euros is like 220 something dollars. And that wouldn't happen in the United States. It wouldn't be accepted. Best case scenario, companies like Apple, and I'm just using them for example because I use Apple products, but the same thing would happen to Samsung or Google. Worst case scenario, there would be organized boycotts. Best case scenario, Americans would go to Europe specifically to buy electronics if they were cheaper there. It's just not something that would get tolerated. Businesses would fail in the United States if electronics cost what they did in Europe. And yeah, it's a trade-off. Necessities are cheaper in Europe for the most part, and that's why that happens. If everything was cheaper or more expensive in the United States, it wouldn't work. Americans would just say no. Here, it just doesn't matter. But I guess that's why these cheaper Chinese companies like Xiaomi sell things. And the other thing that Europeans just really seem to accept is Ryanair. I've had quite a few European people in my life who have said to me, oh, it's not that bad. No, Ryanair is that bad. Ryanair is absolutely disgraceful. It makes Frontier and Spirit look like luxury airlines. I have never had a Ryanair take off on time. I have been on a Ryanair where the flight attendants are going up and down the aisles selling their stupid scratch-off lottery tickets as the damn plane is landing. I once had to take a shuttle bus from the gate onto a tarmac for my flight. I get there and the plane isn't even there. It took the plane another 40 minutes to arrive. So, yeah, Ryanair would never be allowed to exist in the United States. There's nothing good about it. Like, not a damn thing. Europeans think that they're saving money with Ryanair. They really aren't with all the added expenses. I think the primary reason to use Ryanair is a lot of times there's no other choice in the matter. But no, it is that bad. And you guys just take that. So perception, stereotype, whatever you want to call it, a lot of the times they're absolutely true. Welcome to the mean streets of Gimmerreich. And now I'm going to show you the fifth thing I've learned. Look at this crap. You know what this is? Huh? You know what that is? That's cobblestone streets. And cobblestone streets are very slippery, even when it's not raining. It could be dry as a bone here, and lately that's what it's been. And you cannot walk more than 1 hour in the city of Gimmerreich without seeing an able-bodied person, not necessarily a senior citizen, but an able-bodied person in a cast, on crutches, using a walker, bandages. They're falling everywhere. It's really only in the city center of Guimarães. And it's because most of the city center, or maybe half the city center, I think more than half the city center, is cobblestone. And this is not just a Guimarães thing, it's not just a Portugal thing, it's primarily a European thing. And sure, it looks great, really nice aesthetics, but it's stupid. And it's dangerous. And people are getting hurt. And it's got to stop. I know for a fact that this can never happen in the United States because whatever municipality agrees to it would get sued out of existence. But I understand that's a fault of American society. There's way too many frivolous lawsuits everywhere. I'm not justifying that. But cobblestone streets in the year 2025, they're just beyond stupid. And this is not one of those things where there are two sides to every story. There isn't. It might look nice, but it's stupid, it's dangerous, and cobblestone streets need to go away in Europe. So here I am at the Guimarães train station, and we're going to talk about the sixth thing that I've learned. If given the choice between a bus and a train in northern Portugal, you are always going to choose the bus. There's a lot of stories about trains and the romanticism of it, and people have such high thoughts of trains, but I gotta tell you, the only trains worth a damn here in Portugal are the Alfa Pendular. And it's kind of like how in Spain, the regular trains, yeah, not that good. You want to be on the fast train, the AVE. I guess I really can't speak for all of Portugal, just northern Portugal. We don't have the Alfa Pendular in Guimarães. So if you want to go anywhere by train, you're on this regular train. And these regular trains are as slow as shit. The first time that I went on it, I was going 8 stops to Vila das Aves. And right before the first stop, the damn train broke down and I couldn't go anywhere for 35 minutes. So it just took forever. I don't trust the trains here. I won't take them any more than 3 stops, which means the limit for me is Vizela. If I ever go back to Vila das Aves, I'm going to ask you to please put me in a straitjacket and send me away somewhere. But if I ever go back to Vila das Aves, I'm going to take a bus. Trains in Portugal, in northern Portugal, not Porto, where there is an Alfa Pendular, but trains in northern Portugal are bad. Always choose the bus. Now I'm outside of the train station in Guimarães, and I want to add something to that. The bathroom here at the Guimarães train station had been shut down for more than 2 months, and couldn't really figure out why the hell it was taking so long. Well, I figured it out. They installed a machine, and now you got to pay 50 cents if you want to take a piss. So if you need to go to Porto, taking the train from Guimarães will take about an hour and 25 minutes. And that's if the damn thing doesn't break down. There's nowhere to go to the damn bathroom. So, you better have a bladder made of iron if you're going to use the trains in northern Portugal. So that was very disappointing at the Guimarães train station. You got to pay to piss now. I've explained here before, I do not pay to piss. I will urinate on the train tracks. I will urinate on a street corner. I simply will never pay to use a bathroom. So those are the 6 things I learned. This video is a bit more negative, I think, than I thought it was going to be. So aside from these being 6 things that I've learned, I also want to say these are 6 things that you should consider before moving to Portugal. So now there are 2 questions. Knowing what I know, if I had to do it all over again, would I? And do I have any regrets? If I could go back in time, would I change it? So if I had to do it all over again, I would not. This has not been easy. I wish I was on a D7 visa for passive income, not the D8 digital nomad visa. They were changing rules, changing goalposts, a lot of expenses. And you know what? There should be. This should not be a cheap thing. If you make it cheap, then you get the wrong crowd. I don't blame Portugal for that. I just wish that they were more consistent with things. But that being said, if I had to go back in time and change things, there is no way in hell I would change things. I love Guimarães, Portugal, my life here. Despite this lingering sickness that I've had for the last few weeks, I've gotten so much healthier. My first choice is still to stay in Portugal after 6 full months. I don't know if I will. I guess I'll have that answer in 2 months or so. But we'll see. So, yeah, overall, I'm happy here. I want to stay. So, if you want more videos about moving to Portugal, the process of getting here, Portuguese football, anything Portugal related, please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. These are the best things you can do to help a content creator on YouTube. I want to thank you all for watching. And here is to Portugal.